Steven Universe Future is an epilogue series dedicated to tying up all the loose ends left over from the original television series by introducing its own narrative that, at this current point in time, has various loose ends. Because of course, it does need a reason to keep us invested. Jokes aside, now that we're on hiatus, that's going to last for whoever knows how long, I want to take a closer look at the first 10 episodes of Steven Universe Future, and identify each and every plot thread that's either been introduced thus far, or a significant loose end from the original series or the movie that still hasn't been touched on. I'm assuming everyone here has brushed up on their Steven Universe knowledge, but if not, let's just play it safe and issue a good old spoiler warning. If you're not caught up with Steven Universe, go catch up, then come back here. Or don't come back here, I don't control your life. We're all in Era 3 now. Alright, first things first, Steven's pink powers. Definitely one of the more peculiar plot threads of Steven Universe Future, Steven seems to have earned a sudden transformation that has strong similarities to his pure gem half, which had immense unbridled power, much like this form here. There's a lot we still don't understand about Steven's new pink mode, but what we do know is that it's anchored to very intense negative emotions. Whether if it's straight up anger, like we saw with Aquamarine and Eyeball, a feeling of hopelessness, like against Jasper, or very confused, complicated emotions. Fear that stems from the concept of the unknown, like when Steven unconsciously taps into this form and creates a giant diamond dome shield in the episode Little Graduation. This form can also apparently affect fusions, as seen with Smoky Quartz and Guidance, which was once again triggered by a feeling of hopelessness. It appears Pink Diamond also had these powers, but I definitely feel as if we need a greater explanation on how she tapped into these powers. What situations and emotions did she endure in order for these powers to suddenly manifest? There's definitely more to come from this angle, and whether or not these powers are bleeding out now due to Steven going through great change and puberty, it certainly seems as if these are the full extent of a diamond's power. That their skill set isn't relegated to just a handful of abilities, it's an entire arsenal. I'm definitely excited for this pink transformation to have a greater focus. Due to Pearl being unfamiliar with these powers, she doesn't have much of a strong emotional reaction or concern, and I believe it'll either take Steven using these powers in front of Connie or the diamonds for this subject to have greater advancement. However, let's switch gears over to the person who brought these powers out in the first place, Jasper, the Big Buff Cheeto Puff's next move, and her relationship with Steven. When we're introduced to Jasper in Little Homeschool, it appears instead of plotting for revenge, she's just kind of sulking in her lonesome, preparing for a battle that may never come, with an enemy that's yet to exist. However, she gets her first good fight in a very long time after her and Steven provoke each other into fisticuffs. While Jasper declines Steven's offer to be his fighting mentor of sorts, she didn't turn down his offer for him to visit her again. And with everything Steven's dealing with lately, he may want to punch his way through his feelings, and Jasper would be happy to oblige. However, when it comes to the role of an antagonist, I wouldn't say Jasper is exactly in the clear yet. Once she gets a taste for power, she really tends to fixate on it, and I believe any future sparring with Steven could spark something in her brain. What more power could Jasper have than control of a diamond? And while that would definitely do a number on Steven's mental health, one big question is already doing some damage. And that question is, what does Steven want for his future? This was first brought up by Amethyst at the end of Guidance, and later by Lars in Little Graduation. Steven has arrived at a very important time in his life. The war is officially over. Little Homeschool is up and running, and what's really difficult for Steven, people are moving on. So naturally, Steven should also be ready and willing to move on. But to what exactly? He still wants to help people, but most of his attempts so far in Future have not worked out the way he thought they would. And as soon as he really gets into gardening, he brings a cactus to life that throws all of the intense emotions he's been dealing with right back in his face. Steven finding a new purpose in life is truly a big pill to swallow, not just for the character, but for the audience as well. We absolutely won't get a resolution to this until the very end. Something else that I believe won't conclude until Future itself does is another big question that carried over from the original series. How does Steven feel about his mother? Rose Quartz, aka Pink Diamond, is without a doubt the most controversial character in Steven Universe. A lot of people really love her character, and a lot of people really hate her character. Something that I said from the very moment A Single Pill Rose aired is that the divisiveness between Pink Diamond was 100% intentional handled by the Crewniverse. We're not meant to choose one side as a unified group. Everyone is entitled to their opinions. Some people feel as if Future is putting in overtime in order to ensure that Pink Diamond is seen as a villain and nothing else, but that's not really the case. Although it really hasn't been touched on past volleyball, that episode in Rosebuds does highlight Steven's difficult, uncertain feelings towards his mother. After everything that's happened, he still doesn't have an opinion to form on her. It affected his perception and attitude towards the Rose Quartz gems, and he absolutely can't handle hearing another horrible thing about his mother. Which again shows Steven doesn't want to think of her as some cackling supervillain. And considering we as an audience are supposed to relate with Steven as we view things from his perspective, it goes to show that while again we can form our opinions, those opinions shouldn't be definitive. I'm sure the more we dive into what's happening with Steven and his powers, the more we'll learn about Pink Diamond, and the more clarity we'll receive on her. But on the note of an actual antagonist, what's up with Holly Blue Agate? Now, to say she's a major focus would be a great exaggeration, but Holly Blue Agate's brief cameo in Rosebuds is very telling. She's absolutely a gem who's dissatisfied with Era 3. She's annoyed with the Diamond's fixation on Steven, and the return of the ominous Diamond theme while she was speaking tells me that even if it's just to a small extent, we should keep some sort of an eye out on Holly Blue. With Aquamarine and Eyeball already openly attacking Steven, which we'll touch on in a second, Holly Blue Agate may return and have a concrete conclusion to her character arc. But speaking of Rosebuds, the Rose Quartz gems, what's next for them? More specifically, will they all stay at the zoo? After being bubbled for thousands of years, these gems have finally been unbubbled, showing the rest of Gemkind's liberation to do whatever they want. So why would they stay on the zoo? Is they all they plan to do? They already made a visit towards Earth, but pretty much all of it was relegated to Steven's house. With all of these gems free to do whatever they want, why would they all be cooped up in one place? I'm definitely hoping that we'll see these gems at least one more time, but for now, my headcanon falls under the idea that they're staying in the zoo because now that the zoo ship is a cruise ship, they'll be able to traverse the furthest reaches of space, and that they're using said cruise ship to visit as many planets as possible. Their ship may be their home in terms of a place to sleep and rest, but as far as they're concerned, the entire galaxy is open for them to finally explore and see. Their home isn't confined to just one place. Yet before we move on from Rosebuds as a whole, a big question that started in the movie and carries on here is what the hell was in Lion's treasure chest? The chest has been open for quite some time, no attention has been drawn to it, and we're just expected to take it at face value and move on. But no, I want to know what was inside. Will it be useful to Steven Universe Future? Or was it just some wacky neat thing that we won't find out about? Or when we finally do, it'll be discussed offhandedly. Again, since I believe Future will conclude with Steven forming a definitive answer about his mother, I like to believe that whatever was inside the chest, it'll end up being a positive. Something that, while in the moment may be more conflicting for Steven, will ultimately make it just a little bit more easier for him to find an answer. Jumping to volleyball, and I find this important enough to be a little bit more separate from the first point, Pink Diamond's destructive powers. What exactly were these destructive powers and to what extent? Because so far in terms of destruction, Steven has only used one of these powers, which is an ability I will refer to as the Diamond Whale. The ability that pierced Pink Pearl to the point where her eyes shattered, and even threw White Diamond off balance and changed her mind. Steven's other powers so far that have been exclusive to this Pink transformation have been Smoky Quartz's sonic speed, and I guess one would argue his general increased agility, as seen with his battles against Jasper and Aquamarine and Eyeball. But none of those are really destructive. The super speed actually prevented more destruction than from what actually happened. But I think knowing what Pink Diamond was capable of will again help us give us a better understanding, because if she avoided using any of these powers in the lore, it'll show how much she grown, how much restraint she actually learned even before staging her shattering. And I firmly believe every piece of this puzzle matters. But speaking of the ramifications of Pink Diamond's powers, Pink Pearl's eye. What state is it currently in? This is more of a minor mystery, and while I doubt Pink Pearl's eye has been fully healed, some fans speculate that it actually is. We purposely did not see the other side of the eye in volleyball, and while I can dig into this in a separate video, for now I just want to address it's a thing, and at least one more appearance from volleyball is definitely warranted. Give us that closure! Jumping to Bluebird, Aquamarine and Eyeball's revenge. Despite being easily squashed by the crystal gems, Aquamarine and Eyeball swore to Steven that they'll always be out there hating him, freezing things with, "You may have won this time." Aquamarine and Eyeball are both very stubborn characters, so I wouldn't put it past them to return at a later point. But something I found interesting was that Bluebird mentioned that they were treasured on Homeworld until Era 3, which has me wondering, what is Era 3 like on Homeworld? Out of all things intentional, leaving out Homeworld thus far has been one of the Crewniverse's most calculated moves. What does Homeworld look like? How do gems act now? What are the day-to-day duties and operations? And when we get this answer, I'm also hoping to get an answer on Spinel and the Diamonds. How are they? We last saw them in Steven Universe the movie, but according to Holly Blue Agate, the Diamonds are still fixated on Steven. Was it a match made in heaven? Are the Diamonds now going to have a hyperfixation on Spinel? How would she feel about that? Would she even notice? Spinel has also clearly became a fan favorite character after the release of Steven Universe the movie, so although the storyline in future was already in the book, I'm hoping they had enough foresight to at least give Spinel a moment or two to shine, to see how she's doing in this not so happily ever after. Moving on to Snow Day, I do believe that there's only one big plot thread that the show should acknowledge: the bubbled cryptid gems, which we briefly saw in the burning room. I don't believe this was an animation error, as Little Homeschool began with Steven uncorrupting cherry quartz. But I'm curious now, how many gems are still bubbled? And what about the cryptid gems we haven't seen healed yet? I want to know what a lot of them look like. So I'm hoping by the end of this epilogue, all of the cryptid gems will be fully healed, and every cryptid gem from the original series will have the slightest amount of screen time. They don't even need to be voiced, and we can just have proper closure on that aspect. Yet, although it's not a major plot thread, one thing is still just bugging me, and Snow Day only drove that irritation crazier than it already was: Ruby and Sapphire's new reformations. When Garnet poofed in together alone, obviously they poofed. Garnet kinda has a crazy new form compared to what we've seen previously. So what has changed about Ruby and Sapphire? I need to know, please, please, please. Jumping to Why So Blue, Nice Lapis, and Mean Lapis. What's next? Nice Lapis is at Little Homeschool, but where did the curly little Regina George go? Is Nice Lapis secretly an inside job? Will Mean Lapis show up heartbroken that she was abandoned? Or was there a rather harsh fight off screen? And Mean Lapis may actually seek out alliance elsewhere, returning with a force to be reckoned with. Scooting on over to Little Graduation, can we please just take a moment to freak out about Lars and the off-colors in space? I don't know about you guys, but that seemed like a little bit of a tease for at least one more episode featuring these characters. What will Lars' adventures and missions in space entail? Steven's absolutely going to take the opportunity to visit him. What is he going to find when that happens? I know we'll just have to wait and see. But something else introduced in this episode that kind of piques my interest is Little Homeschool after Steven. What'll change? Who's the de facto leader now? While I doubt any of the changes will be too crazy, new leadership does often result in change. Who is leading Little Homeschool now? Is there a particular crystal gem? Or are they all just winging it? We already haven't seen much of the school in terms of their day-to-day function, aside from the glimpses in Little Homeschool, but I'm hoping that with whatever we're given, we're shown that the school is at least functioning as well as it was when Steven was calling the shots. Rounding things out, Cactus Steven on the loose. Alright, I doubt Cactus Steven is going to go around wreaking havoc, but I'm still curious on where exactly he's going to go. It looks like he was sort of headed to the ocean, so I could see him ending up on Mask Island, but I highly doubt we've seen the last of him. Last but not least, the most troubling of all, Steven's bottled up emotions. By the end of Prickly Pear, Steven feels as if he can't talk about anything, that he's already said enough. But with his dwindling mental health, I just can't see this ending well for Steven. How is this going to end? Is he going to break? Just how bad is the downward spiral going to be from here? I guess we'll get that answer and more when Steven Universe returns eventually. Yeah, I think we're chilling for a while. But as always, these are just my thoughts and I want to hear yours. What do you think? Out of all of these plot threads, give us the top 3 of what piques your interest in the comments below. And for more of my own thoughts, you can find me at ARTWITHKODA, and you can find more Roundtable shenanigans over at Roundtable Vids. You can find us at both Twitter and Instagram. I want to give a special shout out to ARTWITHKODA for this amazing thumbnail. For more of his own art, you can find him on Tumblr and Instagram at ARTWITHKODA, and subscribe to his YouTube channel, links to those in the description. And you can help Roundtable grow by either becoming a member of this channel or supporting us over at Patreon, link in the description. If you enjoyed this video, please throw a like and subscribe to the Roundtable for more great cartoon content. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day. ARTWITHKODA, signing out.